Hi everyone, my name is Honey and this is my 7th video on my channel. I'm a CRM booster. In this video I'm going to cover OOPS concept, that is part 2 for Dynamics 365 interview questions. So let's continue. So first, why a CRM developer needs to know about OOPS concept. So why there is a need for me to know about OOPS concept and why I should study and know about it. First, Microsoft CRM, Customer Relationship Management, is an IaaS, Internet Information Based Services application which supports .NET Framework because CRM is developed by Microsoft and .NET Framework is also a Microsoft framework developed by them. So to extend functionality as per business requirement, we use .NET functionality, .NET Framework. That in case if I can't achieve something using out of the box feature of CRM, I can achieve that using .NET functionality, .NET Framework by writing a plugin for that CRM. So to extend functionality of D365, a developer writes plugin code in Visual Studio with appropriate .NET Framework. .NET Framework supports wide range of programming languages such as C#, VB.NET, C++, F#. So C# is an object-oriented programming language. Means I will write my plugin code in C# language, and C# supports object-oriented programming. So that is why I should know about OOPS concept, because I will be writing plugin in C# language, and C# language uses object-oriented programming to write C# code. So a developer writes C# code in Visual Studio with latest .NET Framework, right? And why I will write that code inside Visual Studio only? Because Visual Studio is a very powerful integrated development environment where I can actually write your C# or .NET programs. It's popular because it supports code editing, interface design, server management, debugging and performance analysis. So all these things are supported inside Visual Studio while writing any code. And debugging is one of the most great feature because I should know where my code is failing. So with the help of debugging feature inside Visual Studio, I can debug my plugin code. So .NET has a huge collection of predefined classes, libraries that support for simple and complex structures. Therefore, knowledge about OOPS concept, programming language and concept helps. So now I believe you understood that why I should know, why as a developer, MSCRM developer, I should know about OOPS concept. So let's continue ahead. So question comes in my mind is, what is OOPS? OOPS stands for Object Oriented Programming, means programming language that revolves around an object. So what is an object? Object is made of two parts, attribute and functions. Object is a real world entity, you can say, for real world example. So it is made up of two parts. Attribute means field values like we have in CRM, and functions like functions we write inside any programming language. Attribute, n number of fields containing values or data. Function that operates on attribute data. Example, Mr. Bean, a famous comedian, is an object. So he will be having attributes like height, gender, age. So these are his attributes, and his function will be like he can move, he can talk, he can see, he can eat. So all these are his functions. I'm just giving a rough real world example to you. So it means object is comprised of attribute and functions. Quite easy to understand. Next, what is a class then? We have learned about classes inside OOPS programming language. So a class is a blueprint layout representation of an object in OOPS. Blueprint layout representation. Blueprint, as the word itself suggests, that it's a blueprint. It's a structure basically of an object in OOPS. OOPS language is made up of classes and object. Classes or object plays an important role for OOPS programming language. So real world example is like human is a class. I am a human, I am a class. and Mr. Bean is an object. Means human is a class and Mr. Bean is an object for that class. And Mr. Bean will have properties like eyes, nose, ear, legs. Functions will be talk, walk, see, eat. So basically it suggests it's a blueprint. Means a human, this is a structure for a human, and it can be a male, it can be a female, and the name can be Mr. Bean, and the name can be any other thing for the female. So Mr. Bean is an object for this human class. So guys, the process to define a class and syntax for the same is, this way I can create a class. Like I have used this keyword class and human. Human stands for the name for the class, curly braces, and inside string gender is equal to male. Where string gender is equal to male refers to an attribute, refers to a field with data type string and value is equal to male. So next is how to create an object. So here, class human, string gender is equal to male, static void main, string arguments, bracket, then bracket close, then human, basically this stands for the attribute and this is the function. So here class includes attribute and function inside it. So then function will include to create an object for the class human. So how to create an object? Class name, name of the object is equal to new class name, bracket, then semicolon. And this is a statement to print something on C# code, basically console.writeLine bean.gender, where bean stands for the object, dot gender stands for the attribute with type string, and now the output will be male. So in this way we can define a class and object for the same. This is a short example which I am trying to show you so that it can be understandable to everyone. So let's continue. Then comes OOPS concept. OOPS concept includes inheritance, encapsulation, polymorphism, abstraction. So all these 4 concepts are really important and usually asked during interviews. Where inheritance, in brief with example. So when a child class can inherit properties of a parent class, then it called an inheritance. So like we have a parent class named as human, where female and male class are 2 separate child classes. Both male and female class can inherit properties of the parent class, right? Because both child classes can inherit properties of parent class human, that is legs, hands, all these are basic properties. Properties means the attributes, the field, which they can inherit from the human class. Basically it helps to save time, as well as it helps to not to rewrite the code again. That is why mainly inheritance is used. So let's see what are the type of inheritance. We have single level, multi-level, multiple, hierarchical. So we have to remember 4 inheritance types: single, multiple, multi-level and hierarchical. So C# language doesn't support multiple inheritance. In that place it uses interface. So let's see in detail every type of inheritance. So here, inheritance types in brief. Single inheritance. Like we have a class A, that is a parent class, base class. B, that is a child class known as derived class also. Class B inherit properties of class A. Let's check using an example. Like here, public class, public is the specifier, that is a public class and it can be inherited. Class and account credit info, and this is the name for the base class. So Here, account credit info is the base class, the parent class. It has public string credit as a function. Return balance is credited. Public class debit info. This is the child class, and this colon symbol is used for inheritance. Means debit info child class is inheriting properties from base class, the parent class. Okay, public class debit info colon base class, or you can say parent class. Now public string debit. Now inside debit function is of debit info child class, but it is calling credit function inside it. Derive class function. Return balance is debited. In this way, we can use properties of functions defined inside parent class inside child class using inheritance. And inheritance is happen using this colon symbol. Single inheritance is like debit info related child class is inheriting properties from account credit info. So this is the single inheritance. No other class is involved in this. There is a direct inheritance between them. And difference. So multi-level and multiple. This is multi-level. In brief, I am explaining inheritance as of now. Here, class A is the base class. Class A is the base class. Class B is a child class of class A, and class C is the child class of class B. So basically, to save time and to save procedure of rewriting the code again, we use multi-level inheritance. If in case I have declared or defined any function inside base class and it has some properties, and I want to use that function again in class B, then I will not write the function again in class B. I will just use inheritance in that case, and in that case I will use inheritance basically, where class B is inheriting properties from class A. And now there is a class C which want to inherit properties or functions which are available in class B as well as not as well as in class A, but properties and functions of class B. In that case, class C can inherit from class B. It's a simple explanation as of now. Then we have multiple, that is interface. So C# doesn't support multiple inheritance, so we use interface in that case. And to write interface code, we will in place of class we write interface IA, interface IB, where I stands for the interface. I should be written to make C# code understandable that this is the interface. And now here, like multiple inheritance means a single interface in inheriting properties from other two interfaces at the same time. Like interface IC colon is inheriting properties from IA and IB. So basically at the same time we can inherit properties from two different classes to save space, as well as to save time, as well as to save yourself from rewriting the code again. In that case, multiple inheritance and multi-level inheritance are used. So let's continue to the next slide. Other is hierarchical inheritance. So basically in this inheritance, if I want to use properties of one single parent class inside three different child classes, in that case I can use hierarchical inheritance, or the name given to this type of inheritance is hierarchical inheritance. So B is inheriting properties of class A, C is also inheriting properties of class A, and D is also inheriting properties of class A. at the same time. So in that case, both basically all these three child classes can redefine functions available inside A in their own manner, and whatever output they want, they can make it happen using hierarchical inheritance. So let's continue to the next topic. That is, what is polymorphism? Polymorphism is also a type of OOPS concept, where poly stands for many and morphism stands for forms, many forms. It occurs when we have classes related to each other by inheritance. So polymorphism is dependent upon inheritance concept. Polymorphism can occur between a base class and a derived class, where base class is a parent class and derived class is a child class. So inheritance help to inherit field and functions of base class into derived class, and polymorphism uses same function to perform different tasks. Means I'm using the same function which was available in the base class, but to perform a different action inside my child class. So there are basically two types of polymorphism: static polymorphism and dynamic polymorphism. Where static polymorphism is also known as compile time polymorphism or early binding, and this is mostly asked in interviews. The mechanism of linking a function with an object during compile time is called as early binding or static binding. C# provides two techniques to implement static polymorphism. Okay. So basically, compile time polymorphism or early binding states that a compiler identifies at the time of compiling the code that which function basically an object is calling. So on that basis, so we have function overloading and operator overloading are the two types of polymorphism, that is static polymorphism. So let's check for the code. Through code we can understand what is function overloading. So here I'm on the code. So here we have declared namespace polymorphism application. This is the namespace which we have given. Namespace acts as a container where we can use to store classes, functions, and attributes, objects. All these can be stored inside namespace. It acts like a container, which I will explain in the same video, but in some time. So here, class print data. Print data is the name for the class, where void print int I. This is a function. It has parameter int I of type integer. I has value of integer type, that is integer type. Console.writeLine printing int 0, and then there is a comma I. Void print double f, it is of type double f. Console.writeLine printing float, basically for float values. Void print string s, this is for string values. Console.writeLine printing string comma s. Static void main string arguments print data. This is the main function. Inside main function we are creating object for this class print data. This is the name of the class. P is equal to new print data, and P is the object. So P will call this function, and depending upon the parameter value, compiler decides basically which function it has to call. P.print and value has 5, so it will call this function. It will print printing int, then the value will be 5. In case if it calls this p.print, and this is a double floating point value 500.263, the output will be printing float colon then 500.263. Then p.print hello C++. So in that case, if it calls this function at the compile time, print, then the output will be printing string hello C++. So in that case, using polymorphism, static polymorphism, that is called as function overloading also, we can redefine a function inside class depending upon the parameters, return type, depending on the data type and parameters inside the function. So in that case, we can make a function behave different or give an output in a different way using this functionality, and is known as function overloading. Overloading is like rewriting the function again, and depending on the parameters at the time of compiling, uh, compiler identifies that which function it has to call. In the same way, operator overloading is like I am storing values of a plus b inside a variable, and I'm using that variable again and performing some functions and some parameters I'm using. So in that way, we can overload an operator also. Basic operators which are supported in C++ language, like plus, addition, subtraction, division, all these multiplication, all these operators can also be overloaded depending upon the scenario. Then we have dynamic polymorphism, that is also known as runtime polymorphism, late binding. C# allows you to create abstract class that are used to provide partial class implementation of an interface. Implementation is completed when a derived class inherits from it. Abstract class contains abstract function which are implemented by the derived class. Derived class have more specialized functionality. Means just to save space as well as to make the code understandable, we can use dynamic polymorphism, and it can be done using abstract class, using abstract keyword before a class name, and I will tell you in detail about abstract class. So in abstract class, basically we can define a class but we cannot declare a class. Sorry, we can declare a class but we cannot define a class, and we can declare a function in that but we cannot define it. So let's check with the code to understand dynamic polymorphism, that is late binding. But before that, let's check for the difference between early binding and late binding, where early binding is also known as function overloading. We also call it as function overloading, and late binding is also termed as function overriding. So let's see the difference between them. So like here, overloading and overriding. Function overloading is a type of polymorphism. It has several names like compile time polymorphism or static polymorphism, and sometimes it is called as early binding. Function overloading is the same, I told you, overriding. Overloading means creating multiple functions in a class with the same name but different signature, like I'll shown you with print function, but with different parameters. It permits a class, struct or interface to declare multiple functions with the same name with unique signatures, with unique parameters. Function overriding means having two functions with same name and same signature. One should be in the base class, another function should be in the derived class. You can override the functionality of the base class function to create a same name function with same signature in the derived class. You can achieve function overriding using inheritance. Virtual and override keywords are used to achieve function overriding. So virtual and override words are used to achieve function overriding. Means I can have a function with the same name and same parameters and same parameter type also with the help of function overriding, we call it as. And virtual and override are the keywords used before the class name. Virtual is used before the you can say base class name, and override is used for the child class name. With the help of these keywords we can do so. Compiler in function overloading, compiler automatically calls required function to check number of parameters and their type which are passed into that function. So depending upon number and type of parameters, compiler automatically calls the required function. So here it is clear that we can modify the base class function in the derived class. Changing the return type of function does not make the function overloaded. You cannot create function overload vary only by the return type. So only return type doesn't decide that it will be that overloading will be done on that function. The parameters and number of parameters and the return type, and basically there should be difference in that. So points will be remembered for overriding. Function cannot be private. So if function will be private, it cannot be overridden by the base class, by the child class function. Only abstract and virtual functions can be overridden. Only abstract or virtual functions can be overridden. Which function should be called is decided at the runtime. So that is why it is known as runtime polymorphism, or we can say function overriding, or we can say late binding. So in that case, this is the difference between overloading and overriding. Let's check overriding using example a code to make it more clear and understandable. So like here is the code. Namespace demo C# class, base class is the name given for the parent class. Public virtual int add int number 1 comma int number 2. Return number 1 plus number 2. So here public is a keyword used before this function, where virtual is the, you can say virtual is the keyword used so that this function can be overridden inside the base class. So virtual is the keyword given. Int is the return type for the function, and add is the function name, and it has included parameters int with the data type number 1 and int as data type 2. And what basically it will return, this function this will return the addition of these two numbers. So here class, child class, the child's name, inheriting this colon, base class name, public override int add with the same return type, and add is a function name. Int, same parameter, same data type for the parameter, same parameter name also. So here it is adding one loop, if else loop. So if number 1 is less than or equal to 0 and or number 2 is less than or equal to 0, console.writeLine values cannot be less than 0 or equal to 0. Console.writeLine, enter first value, number 1 is equal to convert to int 32 console.readLine. Console.writeLine is equal to enter first value, number 2 is equal to convert to int 32 console.readLine. Basically we are redefining the function also, and we are redefining the attribute values also, and the return will be number 1 plus number 2. So here I have overridden the previous add function inside base child class. Another class is there, class program, static void main function is there, base class object. This is creating a base class object. Base class object is equal to new base class. Console.writeLine base class method add plus base class dot add minus 3 comma 8. Base class object is equal to new child class. I'm making an object with the same name for child class also and base class also. Child class, base class add, this is the functionality. Console.readLine. So in that way I can override the functions available inside base class and do the same thing inside the child class, and according to that I can make the output as per requirement. So in that way function overloading and overriding works. So let's check for the other concepts also. So here, namespace. So as we saw in the code, we have used namespace keyword. So namespace are not mandatory in a C# program, but they do play an important role in writing cleaner codes and managing larger projects. Let us understand the concept of namespace with a real life scenario. We have a large number of files and folders in a computer. Imagine how it will be difficult to manage them if they are placed in a single directory. This is why we put related files and folders in a separate directory, and this helps to manage our data properly. Like we have a code data, so we make a different separate file for that. We have some images data, we make a separate file for that to make it more clearer and understandable and to save time also. So in that way namespace is used. Namespace, the concept of namespace is similar in C#. It helps to organize different members by putting related members in the same namespace. Namespace also solves the problem of naming conflict. Two or more classes when put into different namespaces can have same name, which can't happen in C#, but we put in a separate namespace, we can use the same class name in different namespace also. So how we define syntax for this? Namespace is a keyword and my namespace is basically space, my namespace name we can give it, and curly braces. Then class, my class, public void, this is the method, system.console.writeLine, creating my namespace. So in that way we can define a namespace. It is quite easy. So encapsulation, this is another type of. So encapsulation is defined as wrapping up of data under a single unit. It is the mechanism that binds together code and the data it manipulates. In different way, encapsulation is protective shield that prevents data from being accessed by code outside this shield. Encapsulation means collecting information within and wrapping together within a single unit. We call it encapsulation, so that protecting it from other coders which might use your code, save your code and your functions which are defined inside a class. We can use encapsulation method. Technically, in encapsulation, the variables or data of a class are hidden from any other class and can be accessed only through any member function of own class in which they are declared. So because basically it doesn't support inheritance at all, so it means variables or data of a class are hidden from any other class. Any other class cannot use those variables or data and can be accessed only through any member function of the own class. Means the function which are declared within the same class, they can use those variables and data. As in encapsulation, the data in a class is hidden from other classes. It is also known as data hiding. So one can ask you what is data hiding? So the meaning is the same, that it is also an encapsulation, is a synonym for encapsulation as per C# language. Encapsulation can be achieved by declaring all variables in the class as private and using C# properties in the class to get the values of the variables. So we will we will get to understand about this thing using a C# code for encapsulation. So it is similar like a capsule protecting its ingredients and making it more secure. In that way only encapsulation is used, where every variable and class members are declared as private. So this is the code for encapsulation, where we have class gfg is the main method, static public void main, and we are creating object demo encap. Sorry. So actually the class is starting from here. We have public class demo encap. Private variables declared, these can only be accessed by public methods of the class, of the same class. Private string student name, this is the variable. Private int student age. Student age is a variable which is of private type and data type is int. Return type is string for student age name. Using accessors to get and set values of the student name. So public string name. Yes, public string name is accessor. Get return student name. This will return student name. And set student name is equal to value, whatever value is given by the function or by the function basically. Set student name is equal to value. Using accessor to get the and set value of the student age, which is of type int, public int age, and get return में student age, set student age is equal to value. Driver class GFG, main method static public void main, creating object, demo in cap, class name, object is the name of the object, is equal to new demo in cap, call set accessor of the property name and pass this value as the value of the standard field value. Object dot name is equal to Ankita, object dot age is equal to 21. Call set accessor of the property age and pass 21 as the value of the standard field value. And displaying the values of variables, console.writeLine name stands for object.name console.writeLine. So using this static public void main method, we have declared object of the class, and using accessors we are getting and setting values inside private attributes, and displaying those values using this. So it means here, so in this way we can use private variables, and this is termed as encapsulation, so that these variables cannot be accessed outside of this class. Only the class functions can use it. In that way we save our code from being hacked or being used by some other coders. Again, it depends on requirement whether we want to use encapsulation or not. Let's continue with the next concept, that is abstraction. It's one of the main concept inside OOPS programming language, where data abstraction is the property by virtue of which only essential details are exhibited to the user. The non-essential units aren't shared with the user. Encapsulation is like I want my data not to be, my variables or my functions not to be used or not to be visible to other coders. But abstraction is like saving or not sharing non-essential things with the user. Only the essential things will be visible for the user. Like, it may also be defined as a process of identifying only the required characteristic of an object, ignoring the irrelevant details. The process of identifying only the required characteristics of an object, ignoring the irrelevant details, because some details are relevant to me, but some details are not relevant to other who is viewing my code. So I want to save those details from the other user because it's not usable for them. So in that case, abstraction is used. The properties and behavior of an object differentiate it from other objects of similar type, and also help in classifying, grouping the objects. Example, consider a real life scenario of withdrawing money from ATM. The user only knows that in ATM machine, first enter ATM card, then enter the PIN code of the ATM card, then enter the amount which she wants to withdraw, and at the last she gets the money. The user does not know about the inner mechanism of the ATM or the implementation of withdrawing money, etc. The user just simply know how to operate the ATM machine, and this is called abstraction. In C#, abstraction is achieved with the help of abstract classes. Means only showing necessary information while not showing the non-essential things, and this can be achieved using abstract classes. So abstract classes, like I'm defining a class as an abstract class, and basically declaring a class as an abstract class, and declaring function inside it, but it depends on the child class which is inheriting that abstract class, at what function exactly it wants to achieve through. So like here, an abstract class is declared with the help of abstract keyword. In C#, you are not allowed to create objects of the abstract class, or in other words, you cannot see the abstract class directly with the new operator. Class that contains the abstract keyword with some of its methods, not all are abstract, is known as abstract base class. Class that contains abstract keyword with all of its methods with abstract keyword are known as pure abstract base class. You are not allowed to declare the abstract methods outside the abstract class. So these are some important points related to abstract class. So this is the code related to abstraction. Here namespace, demo abstraction, abstract class. We are declaring this class as abstract using abstract keyword before class. And this is the name shape, abstract method, public abstract int area. So we are just defining it. We are not declaring it. Sorry, we are just declaring it. We are not defining it. So next our child class is there, square, and it is inheriting shape base class, which is an abstract class. Private data member, private inside, method of the square class, public square int x is equal to 0, side is equal to x. Overriding of the abstract method of shape class using the override keyword, public override int area, console.write area of square, return side into side. Driver class, this will create an object. CFG main method, GFG, static void main string arguments, creating reference of shape class which refer to square class instance, shape sh is equal to new square 4, calling the method double result is equal to sh dot area console.write result. So creating reference of shape class which refer to the square class. So what will the output? Output will be 16. So we have given new square is equal to 4. 4 is the value and return type, return is this side into side. 4 is 16. Double result, and we are declaring result here. Okay, so in that case we are overriding the method of abstract class and declaring, basically defining it in the child class. So in this way we can use abstraction. So let's check the next difference between constructor and destructor. So this is the one of the question which is asked during interviews. So the primary purpose of constructor is to allocate memory to the objects when they are created. A constructor is allowed to accept the arguments as arguments and can be used to initialize data members of the class. So in class there can be multiple constructors which are identified by the number of arguments passed. Constructor can be overloaded to perform different function under the same name of the constructor. A constructor is called when an object is created. So this is the code. Class construct. We are given the class name as construct. Int a comma b. These are the parameters. Public construct. So in this way constructor with no parameter. This is the constructor with no parameter and constructor name is same as the class name. A is equal to 0. B is equal to 0. Int ab in value is defined here. Construct int c comma d, constructor with parameters. With parameters it will look like this. So here it is declaring values at a is equal to c, c is equal to d. Int main, this main function constructor. So by this statement we invoke a constructor. Int main c1 semicolon c2 10 comma 20. So this will invoke the constructor when the object of this particular class will be created. So in this way we can use constructors, and statements are quite understandable. So let's check for destructor. The main purpose of destructor is to deallocate memory of the object when it is destroyed. Means when object is no more required, destructor is used in that case to save space. A destructor does not accept any arguments, and its the only work is to deallocate the memory of the object. It will not accept any arguments, whereas constructor accepts arguments. It can have only one destructor, whereas constructor can be multiple. On contrary, destructors cannot be overloaded. We can't overload a destructor. A destructor is called when a program is terminated or the program exits the block in which an object is created. Means in the end of the program, and to save space and to end or and to deallocate the memory for the object, then destructor is used. We can look after the example. So this is the code for the destructor. Class construct int a comma b, public construct, this is the constructor with parameters, int c comma d, a is equal to c and c is equal to d, c out, this is the output line statement, value of a and b are this and this. So here destructor is being called, and destructor whenever is called, this is called with the help of this symbol, tight symbol basically, and construct, it is of the same name as the class destructor. Int main, here we are invoking the constructor. Object c1 get destroyed. So if there is a object c1, so it will be destroyed whenever a destructor is being called, and it is called like this. The output will be this. So in this way we can define or declare a destructor. So here briefly I try to explain about OOPS concept and all the concepts which we have: inheritance, abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism, constructors and destructors, and types of polymorphism and inheritance. So all these questions are being asked whenever we try to give any interviews for D365 as a developer, whether we have experience or not. Hope this video has helped you and made you understand about OOPS concept and have helped you to revise all these topics again. If so, please like and comment and share your views for this video. And thank you for watching this video till here. Have a good day.